half girl, half god, all heroine. You're listening to Ranking Rick Riordan, a podcast about Percy Jackson and the whole wide rest of the Riordanverse. I'm Dan.
I'm Olga.
And I'm Clara. And today,
Ranking Rick Riordan presents Ranking Rick Riordan Presents.
This episode, we present Aru Shah and the End of Time.
Ranking Rick Riordan is available on youtube.com/DoingOK and podcast services around the world. Let's get into it.
And this time we have a real video again, but Olga is a disembodied voice.
It's my turn to be a voice.
You could wave your hand somehow.
Come into the screen.
Oh, almost.
No, I can't reach.
You can't do it.
I can't reach.
So we need to figure out a 3-person setup. We never really have. This is a very small room. So someday we'll figure it out. But in the meantime, this is our spoiler cast for End of Time. It was a podcast fraught with disaster.
But not tragedy.
Yes.
Yeah, what is this, Apollo? No.
Yes, let's talk about Tower of Nero.
Yeah.
Let's do it. No, just kidding. I love this book too.
Yeah. So basically, this is just to be honest, we read this book significantly before we started doing the spoiler cast. So we're doing our best. We wrote down good notes, but
that's why you always take notes.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's been 3 weeks since I think I finished the book, and I was the last one to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And this was not for lack of trying.
Yeah.
We were truly plagued.
So we do have a spoiler-free version. If you want to check that out, it'll be in the description and all that stuff. But we're going full spoilers for just this book. We're not going to talk about the other books because we haven't read them for the most part. All right, so let's get right into the actual book. Let's re-say our general thoughts. Clara.
Loved it. Beautiful writing, awesome characters, fantastic tale weaving.
really enjoyed it. Really cute, sweet characters. Love how they're flawed, but still root for them all the way.
Yep.
Some of my favorite team ever, I think, already.
I think that for me, definitely the character stuff is the highlight of this book. I love a lot of things. I love the Night Bazaar and all sorts of stuff that we'll talk about in the recap. But for me, Aru is the star of the show, and the fact that, like you said, Aru is imperfect and in the right level of imperfect. She's still clearly a hero and a likable protagonist that you want to emulate, but she's human. And to me, that is great, especially for a kid's book.
Yeah. She also vaguely reminds me, not in this same character sense, but the things that we love about Sadie.
Yeah.
Of she's a kid who makes kid mistakes or incorrectly prioritizes things because she's young and figuring things out. I love that about Aru too.
Yeah.
Great.
She's imperfect in a way that I feel historically anyway, a lot of female protagonists didn't get to be.
Yeah.
And is very realistic and relatable.
Yeah. And I also love the climax of this. The fact I love how it ends, not how it ends, but how it ends. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Not the last few pages, so to speak, of the book, but
it wasn't what happened, it's what didn't happen.
Yeah. So we do have a few quibbles that we'll get through as we do the recap. I do think there are some confusing bits and some character choices with the mom, but we'll get to that. Let's do the recap.
Yeah, let's jump in. So Aru Shah is a 12-year-old girl who lives at the Museum of Ancient Indian Art and Culture with her mother. She goes to a bougie private school and has the habit of twisting the truth, let's say, to try to fit in with her wealthy classmates. Mm-hmm. A few of Aru's classmates show up to catch her in a lie about traveling over fall break. To save face, Aru takes them down to the museum, where they dare her to light a cursed lamp, the Dia of Barada, or else they'd send the video... Barata, excuse me. I apologize for any future mispronunciations. I did not listen to the audiobook. Or else they'd send the video proving she lied to their class. According to legend, if lit, a demon called the Sleeper would awaken and summon Shiva, the god of destruction, to cause the end of the world.
With a dance.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's sort of talk about this intro. I think, we talked about the imperfection of Aru, And I think it's very interesting how you totally understand why she would constantly be lying to her classmates and why she's doing it to fit in. And also, like, they seem like snooty people to begin with. So if she didn't lie, they'd just make fun of her. At the same time, I like how, even though I understand why she's doing it, if you knew that person, you'd be like, well, I can't believe anything they're telling me. Right. So it I don't know. It's just cool.
Yeah. Great. Like, again, it's a flaw that doesn't rule her out for being likable, but is still definitely a flaw that would be like truly a flaw in a person you met.
Well, I believe it when Minnie says in like the middle of the book, they're like, how am I supposed to trust anything?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Aru's introduction is so fantastic in every way. Yeah. Like, her just like living in this museum is so, like, you can see this girl and her life, and she just like jumps off the page. Yep. She's fantastic.
Yeah. And the way that she's also like, you're already a little bit, at least for us, you know, being older, like, you really think you're not going to get caught in this lie? Yeah. Like, all right. What if they see you at the movies with your mom? Yeah. But at the same time, you feel bad for Aru because clearly she's like a latchkey kid and her mom is really busy with work and like trying to take care of her and doing things for her, but not with her and not with her input. And it's just like really sad.
Yeah.
As an only child, I get the like, you're left on your own sometimes to just like be with your thoughts and entertain yourself.
Yeah, I think they strike a good balance between like, whoa, wouldn't it be so cool to be her and living in a museum, but also like her life stinks at the same time. Yeah. Like, it's
like, it's so real, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one's life is perfect, and she has this thing that makes life really hard for her. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, she's not being like framed as this tragic figure. Yeah. Like, she is enjoying life still, and she's making the most of like her life and way of life.
Yeah.
And she loves the museum too. She doesn't. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dan, but I think it's important to note that like she loves the museum. She loves being like a tour guide there. Yeah. She like appreciates the statues, appreciates the culture. She doesn't feel like resentful of her of her like roots, or that it's like her mom is taken away for that. It's not one of those stories.
That's actually a really good point. That it's like, she's never like embarrassed of anything culturally, really. I guess aside from the one time she talks about they wore these outfits that to them were beautiful and other people were like confused. But that was more about like,
it's still about them. Yeah. No, I mean, this book does such a like, again, like a beautiful job of placing that. Like, the negative feeling is not it's not internalized negative feelings about the culture. It's recognizing that like other people suck.
Yeah.
And making that really clear.
Yeah. And that her problem is just the way her mom's a mother. It has nothing to do with all that other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. Another thing I really like that we're gonna talk about Percy Jackson, I assume, throughout this, because this is what this podcast is. Something that I think this does better than Percy Jackson is I like that she has clear interests. Like, the fact that she is a movie buff, and then that like informs the humor throughout it all. Mm-hmm. I think that's great, that she has like the Spider-Man pajamas and all that stuff. I kept waiting for her to get a new set of clothes throughout the entire book. It never happened.
Loved that.
I kept being like, when are they gonna like go
offer her? No. Especially like they visit like the fashionistas.
Nope, no new clothes. That's being a kid on break, right? You're just like or working from home, as we do.
I also think it's interesting. I mean, looking at this image we have behind us of Aru from the graphic novel, it's like they can say that she's wearing Spider-Man pajamas, but in all the artwork, she's always just wearing a red and blue shirt.
Yeah, they can't really show the web now, can they?
It's great.
So Aru lights the lamp and it explodes. Before passing out, she hears a voice taunting her. When she wakes up, Aru finds the entire room frozen in time, including her mom. A grumpy talking pigeon steps out through a statue's mouth and is disappointed to find that Aru is the one who lit the lamp.
Do we want to talk about Boo?
We mentioned this on the spoiler-free, but like, I'm so glad Boo's not annoying, because I don't think I could say that maybe specifically there. Maybe I did. I don't know. No spoilers. But, like, he's not annoying, and he really could be.
Yeah.
This is that character who could just drive me nuts and make it, like, so juvenile.
Well, that's really true, that, like, a lesser kid's book would also treat him with kid gloves.
Yeah.
And I feel like they let him actually be kind of a butthead.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like kind of misogynistic and patronizing, but then he gets fed some Oreos. So you're like, oh, I shouldn't take this guy too seriously.
And that's part of what makes him not annoying, is that he can, like everyone else in this book, have some growth.
Yeah.
But not like really obnoxious, like, I was really dumb and now I'm less dumb. Like, he's growing as a person.
Yeah. And the fact that he has a history and all that.
Yeah.
So the pigeon, who calls himself Subala, but Aru dubs Boo, reveals that the Hindu gods are real and that Aru must be a reincarnation of one of the Pandava brothers. According to the Mahabharata epic, the 5 Pandava brothers were heroes fathered by different Hindu gods. Aru is the first female incarnation of a Pandava.
So something I want to ask that I've been thinking about is, what, like, are the Pandavas special because of what they did? Because at first I was like, oh, they are the 5 demigods, but clearly there are other demigods if we even just look at, like, Hanuman and stuff like that. So, like, everybody treats them like, oh, the Pandavas are these, like, really important things. Is it because of who their parents are, or is it because of their actions?
I think it's their actions.
Okay.
From what I can tell. I mean, yeah, I think it's their actions.
I think I dipped at this point. It was during the last recording, which, as we said, was a little while ago. I dipped into looking into, like, their birth stories. And basically, it's like the circumstances of being born and being, like, a blessing from the god. Like, the fact that the different gods, like, bless their mothers with them. And for them to specifically, like, have that relationship as brothers and work together. It also just, like, weaves that as well, that it was both the fact that they were demigods, but also did the things that they did, had the gifts that they had. So, yes, there are going to be, like, other legends about and epics, but, like, it just turns out that these epics being repeated so often throughout India and their variations and all of that, that also gives them their importance, that they got to be retained through time.
Yeah. Cool.
So Boo explains that the sleeper will stop time wherever he goes, and after 9 days will reach Shiva, who will perform the dance to end all time. He tells Aru that when one Pandava awakens, so will another. Aru and Boo travel via magic to the awakened Pandava, who is related to Aru by divinity instead of blood. They meet Minnie, a small, apropos, anxious, germophobic girl around Aru's age. Aru's jealous of Minnie at first, since she knew she was a Pandava and her parents had taken her to the other world before.
Let's stop there. So, something that I don't know that we end up actually saying in the recap, so I'll jump ahead and just say, I did think it was very interesting about how they assumed it was her brother. And that, like, they allude to, like, the Pandavas, like, creating unexplained things. It kind of reminds me of, like, Harry Potter before they actually realize they're wizards, right? So I'm interested in whether there are supposed to be stories of Aru also doing things that she can't explain, sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But
wouldn't that have been nice if her mom featured in a conversation to tell us that at all?
We'll just have to wait for that.
But thoughts about Minnie in general?
Love her. And she's another one who, like, she could have been annoying.
Yeah.
And she could have been, like, I don't know, not taken seriously because she's, like, neurotic and a germaphobe. But instead, that's just, like, that's a part of who she is. And I think part of this is, like, how Aru is as a person, too. Like, she really wants to see the best in Minnie, and she does. And she brings that out of Minnie as well. And she's just great. She's adorable, but not in, like, an annoying way. Yeah.
She has a lot of those traits that would be like, oh no, she's neurotic and a know-it-all. But she's not an obnoxious know-it-all. She's she's like generous with her like knowledge, in not that she holds it over people like, you don't know that. She's like, oh, did you not know that? I'm sorry. Like, did I talk? You know, it was just very like, I'm smart, but I'm not judging you for not being smart in the same ways I am, because clearly I have these other faults.
Yeah.
I think I talked about this a little bit in the spoiler-free thing, but I really enjoy like the wish fulfillment aspect also of being like, oh, I have a secret sister that I didn't know about. Like, you know, that's the kind of thing that I think as a young kid would be, especially as an only child, would be a fun reveal.
And a lonely one who doesn't have many friends genuinely, or, you know, any blood siblings in your home. Yeah.
Now, I don't personally have an issue with this, but I think it's worth talking about. Is there anything problematic with making like germophobia her like cute trait?
I don't think it's cute. So like as in the way that it's handled.
Yeah.
And I think one of the ways that it's handled nicely is that she's the daughter of the god of death.
Yeah.
And she wants to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And so it's not just like she's like afraid of germs, so doesn't do things. She's like, this is the fact behind this. So we're going to do an elbow bump instead of shaking hands.
Yeah.
She comes up with solutions.
Yeah.
She's not like avoiding things full stop.
Yeah.
She's thinking through the ramifications and being smart.
Yeah. That's a good way of thinking about it, for sure.
I like that. And again, it's not that she's like afraid of that's the thing. Like her growth is like, am I a coward because I'm germophobic? It's like she goes, and because I'm small and weak and all these things, like she grows beyond that too. Yeah. Like again, even the image on the screen, she's got like the war paint on, you know, the football player under eye face. So like even that shows that she's like more than that.
Yeah.
I also just love, just really quick, that she and Aru both show different like problems that happen in families where like Aru sort of has no idea what her mother's expectations are of her. So she's just sort of like, she loses out from not having that. And then Minnie loses out from having these like really strong parental expectations of her and her brother, because one of them is assumed to have magic and the other is not. And so they're both sort of like losing out from those family dynamics. And I think that's also just handled very nicely.
And I definitely think, I mean, having the thing of everybody assumed it was your brother creates a very like real, interesting psychological condition for that character.
Yeah.
Of like, you know, was it supposed to be me? Or, you know, what does it mean that nobody thought it would be me? And,
right, exactly.
Yeah. And the sexism potential aspect to it, too.
Yeah. So Boo takes them to the otherworld and the court of the sky to meet with the Council of Guardians to receive weapons. And it's revealed that Boo is an exiled guardian. Urvashi and Hanuman arrive as the counselors on duty. Urvashi refuses to believe that Aru and Minnie could be incarnations of the Pandavas. When Aru tells them about the awakened sleeper, Hanuman believes them and warns that when the new moon comes, the sleeper's time freezing will be permanent. He also reveals that the mounts of the gods have gone missing.
More on that later.
Yes. I'm just going to finish reading about this part. Urvashi forces the siblings to undergo a claiming ceremony to prove they are Pandavas. Aru and Minnie are faced by 5 gigantic statues of the gods: Dharmaraja, Indra, Vayu, Nasatya, and Dasara. Arrows suspended in the air start to attack them when a net made of lightning bolts suddenly stops Aru's arrows. Indra is Aru's soul father. A golden ping pong ball appears in her pocket. Meanwhile, Dharmaraja threw down his Danda stick, shattering the arrows that were after Minnie. A purple compact mirror appears as Minnie's gift.
All right, a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
We also cut out the part about them meeting like the magical alligator guy who let them in.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys go first. What are your thoughts about all this?
I thought this was fun. This, I mean, honestly, like there were so many awesome set pieces that this, for me, like didn't strike me as one of the most memorable moments, honestly. Even though it's like a huge plot point, it wasn't as emotionally resonant for me, I guess.
I had a hard time visualizing this scene. Like, you know, we're being told about like the placement of the thrones, sort of, and like who's there and vaguely what they look like. And yes, there are statues, but like, something about how this was written, I just couldn't really watch it as a movie in my head. Like, I know not everyone has that happen when they read.
Yeah.
But to me, this had the potential of being very like cinematic as an action sequence and emotionally resonant of like this. But to me, it really was just like, I was also learning a lot, like about, these gods and this whole thing. And also, I'm sorry, it's been a while, but like also like kneeling down and like, basically like touching their feet and like that cultural resonance. So there was like a lot of information there.
Yeah.
And so I was more aware that I was learning something than I was about like feeling what, our
like,
mini. Yeah. I was just like very aware of everything happening a lot at once.
I personally, the period between lighting the mirror, lighting the lamp, lighting the lamp, and them actually like going on the quest is my least favorite part of the book personally. And I think that definitely a part of that is that this sort of section is so you can create such a one-to-one with Percy Jackson of like they're meeting the important people who are going to send them on the quest, they're getting claimed, all that stuff, and I just didn't like how it was handled in this. I felt like there was between having a lot of exposition with Boo and then a lot of exposition when they're like in between the door to the other world and Minnie's, and then a lot of exposition with Minnie, and then a lot of exposition with the alligator guy, and then a lot of exposition. It was a lot of exposition.
Yeah.
And then when we finally got to the like action scene, I agree. I thought the arrows were just not anything of note. I mean, think about how intense and amazing it is when they're in Lightning Thief and they're doing capture the flag, and then he gets claimed at the end of that. Like, it's there's no contest between those two.
I don't know about that. I didn't find capture the flag the most like exciting. Well, we don't need to rehash. We don't need to talk too much about Lightning Thief.
You're not a fan of Capture the Flag?
I liked it. It was a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't know, it doesn't stand out to me in the history of...
I just, while I disagree with that, I just feel like this, and fine.
whatever the heck I think about Lightning Thief today.
My point is that like the scavenger hunt is like a set piece. In a way that this doesn't actually...
You mean not scavenger hunt, capture the flag.
Oh my God, why do I always do that? This is from listening to us. Yeah. My God, it's from that. And also the fact that there was a scavenger hunt in Hidden Oracle. But anyway, capture the flag is a set piece because it leads to a big thing and there is like action, mystery, and all that. Whereas this
he shows up his powers for the first time.
Yeah, basically like
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But with this, it just doesn't feel like Aru or Minnie like actually have any agency in this. They're just like standing there being like, what is happening? One of these five guys is my soul father. Okay.
Yeah.
Arrows are coming after me. Okay.
Like the capture the flag equivalency is almost more like with the house later on where they're sort of like, I need to like claim my power. Yeah. And this is more sort of like we're just hearing from the gods.
Yeah. It's I guess, in general, I think maybe what it comes down to is that like this is like the least active part of the book. Yeah. And so when we have Aru being active, I think the book is at its best for sure. Yeah. And I also think about like, they don't have a Camp Half-Blood. And to me, that's kind of a bummer. Like an equivalent is my point. Like
they're leaning into that by the end of the book. So to me, that to me is not like I'm okay without that.
Well, I think it was that also, in addition to them not having that, what they were explaining, these locations were so ethereal to me that I wanted something more directly to grab onto.
They'll get the museum by the end, right? Like they're gonna, that's gonna be their
home base,
I assume.
And I think once they get to the Night Bazaar, that also becomes, semi-equivalent.
Yeah, I agree with you about like, we're just moving so fast from place to place, and we don't really have a good idea of like what it looks like or how they feel about it that much or how the background actually matters. So, and they're pretty passive in it. So, I agree with you. It's the weakest part. Like, from the lamplighting through here is the least strong part, but that doesn't mean that it's not good to read. Like, I still enjoyed reading it. I just loved everything that came after way more.
Yeah. I just didn't feel like crying in this part. Like, I was highlighting things like crazy. I was like, I love this paragraph. I love this paragraph. I love that this happened. I loved Minnie's introduction.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that much time that I didn't really love.
So I have a few nitpicks about this section that I'm going to try to zoom through.
Should I transition? There's a little bit more with communication here. Yeah, so Urvashi is convinced the two are Pandavas after all. She directs them to go to the Kingdom of Death and retrieve the celestial weapons of the Pandavas before the sleeper does. Within the Kingdom of Death lies the pool of the past, looking into which will reveal how the sleeper can be vanquished once and for all. To enter the Kingdom of Death without dying, Urvashi tattoos a magical map that will guide them to find 3 keys: the sprig of youth, the bite of adulthood, and the sip of old age. And I think now we can talk about
about a few things, yeah. So first is, at this point, we get a little bit more information about Boo and that he had been a guardian and all that stuff. And when I first read the book, I was kind of confused about this because even when it's revealed who he actually is, he wasn't a demigod or a god. So I didn't understand why he was part of the Guardians. And I'm still a little confused about that. But at least rereading it, they talk about how the defining things of the Guardians are that they're immortal and wise and worthy of being worshipped. Also, he's a sorcerer. So I think that might be part of it.
Yeah.
But one of the big questions that I had involving Boo is whether he was reincarnated as a pigeon or if he was transformed into being a pigeon, given that he remembers his past life and the Guardians are supposed to be immortal. It was because I read through most of this book assuming, he was reincarnated, but him remembering his past life doesn't really jive with that idea. Any thoughts?
My thought has been just what it means to be reincarnated as a more sort of supernatural, otherworldly being. Mm-hmm. So being incarnate, walking on earth, maybe getting a body, you don't lose your memory in the same way that a standard human being would do upon being reincarnated. But that you do need a new body. Yeah. So you get a body that's got a pigeon. That's my thought.
Yes.
I just think that a lot of the questions we have about Boo and his background and his history are just, we're not done learning about him. And the growth he undergoes here is more about his the bare bones of it of I was exiled, I was an enemy of the Pandavas, and now I like these girls and I'm redeeming myself. So it's it really is more of a we'll learn more kind of thing. It's enough to get them on the same side and have him want to be on their side.
That's the thing is I was just left wanting a little bit more of explanation. And I think part of that is that the explanation they give to me is very confusing. So I don't think that they explain him super well. The quote I have here is, "He was the sorcerer who led the eldest Pandava brother astray in a cursed game of dice, where he was forced to gamble away his entire kingdom. Boo started the Mahabharata war. His revenge consumed his own kingdom." So the thing that I think is very confusing about this is when they say his revenge consumed his own kingdom, are they talking about Boo or are they talking about the Pandava brother? Who was seeking revenge? Was doing the gambling him seeking revenge, and if so, for what? It sort of knowing who his is even confusing in the way they word the sentence. So I feel like they gave us the gist, but the way they gave us the gist confused me.
And honestly, we'll talk about this with the mom too. Yeah. I think our big, we're left wanting a lot more specificity and clarification. I want to sit down with Boo and ask him a series of questions. I want to sit down with the mom and ask her a series of questions. And I think we'll get the information sort of slowly throughout. These are the big questions. Who is Boo really? What does his redemption look like?
Yeah.
What the heck is going on with the mom? Mm-hmm. but like because we get those few sentences, it's driving us crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's a bad thing, except that being driven crazy is very
unpleasant,
frustrating.
Yeah.
I just have to, and I think this will actually tie into some other criticisms of like, I can't tell how much of this is author thinking they're succeeding in giving us the right amount of information or like what they think we need versus they think we actually have gleaned more than we have.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, the greater point of frustration of like the fact that it's subjective for some of these things of like what we're supposed to know and not know. That to me is a greater criticism than what is on the page.
Yeah. It's hard to know which questions we're supposed to be left questioning and which questions are just honestly like gaps.
I think another thing that sort of artificially imposes an extra sense of frustration is that while some of us have started reading the second book already, we have been like stopping ourselves from doing that immediately. And this feels like a series that like you could binge this series, like read off. I mean, obviously they weren't all released at once, but like the fact that we're stopping ourselves from going in immediately.
I'll just say, I'm 2/3 of the way through the second book. None of the questions I have from the first book have been answered.
But I think the first book ones are the first book that's setting up the big questions.
Yeah.
Don't
have faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or we circle back to it and be like, all right, no, we didn't learn jack about
But honestly,
stuff.
like, again, I'm not spoiling anything, but like, the second book is so good and so not about those things that it doesn't, like, I'm just in it for the second book.
Yeah.
Okay.
If anything, it's a good thing you started reading.
Yeah. Like, honestly, the second book, I don't have these kinds of questions.
Okay. So maybe this is just an issue of freshman writer. That's not what you call them, but.
Yeah. First time. So then the other
I don't know if she was a first time.
I don't either.
I don't think so. But this was her first Aru Shah book.
Yes.
A beginning of a franchise.
Yes.
So the other big question I have, which I believe honestly is a plot hole, is couldn't they have just hung out in the Kingdom of Death until the new moon? The sleeper couldn't have gotten to them or Shiva once the keys were used. So the whole thing is that once it hits the new moon, if he hasn't met Shiva, his curse is broken and the mom and everybody's fine. So there's really no reasons for them to leave the Kingdom of Death.
I'm imagining the mom like being woken up and being like, I could have told you if you had just stayed in this, that would have solved it. And now I need to come up with a whole other explanation.
And there is explanations you could come up with if you want, which like you could say, oh, well, they did it all to save Boo because Boo was captured. But like, they
always intended to move through the Kingdom of Death and leave again.
But they never really, the problem is they never have that discussion. You know what I mean?
I wish that there was just a line saying, like, you can't stay in the Kingdom of Death too long because you're not actually dead.
Yeah.
Like, even that would have answered it. Because even being like, but you can't stay in the house that you're going to find there for 9 days because then you will lose the ability to exit or something like that. Like, you need to go get the weapons and get out. Like, even just that kind of stakes would have made it a little also more expedient.
Yeah. It's also just like, I think that it's odd in general that like once Boo gets captured, they don't, like, they're just kind of weird about it. Like, so like they get the third key after Boo's been captured and there's no talk of, do we hand these over to the sleeper to save Boo? They just immediately go into the Kingdom of Death. And I think again, I never would have believed that they would have given them to the sleeper to save Boo, but like...
Let's pause for a second, because I personally would have found that such an artificial discussion. Like, they're like, your mom, your family is frozen.
Yeah.
They'll die, I mean, whatever, let's put that original thing.
Yeah.
So... what, I'm going to trade this key for this parrot? No, I'm going to pigeon, whatever. He's a good bird. I like him, right? Like,
nice
he's
bird.
been my mentor for the equivalent of 6 hours. But like, I'm not going to trade him for my mom.
I agree, but I would also argue that them choosing not to even consider that option is very anti-hero.
No, it's not. It's realistic. It's pragmatic. Why would you think?
Yeah, if anything, that's the real world and not like the hero on the page, which is what Dan is saying.
But like it is, but it's also heroic to say like, no, we're gonna save everyone.
Yeah, like, but I'm just saying, in most fiction, when the bad guy has someone captured and they say, you do this or I will, kill the person I have captured, the hero is the weak emotional one who then goes and falls for it because they want to save the person.
Preteen girls aren't going to fall for that crap, Dan.
They're not
That's the difference.
They might like to give Boo Oreos and joke around with him, but no misogynistic pigeon is worth your family.
Like, that's your mom. Like, it would be different if this were book 5, maybe, right? Like, then maybe it's up for debate, and it's not.
Yeah.
Like,
I just feel like the character of Minnie would have considered it. At least considered it.
Her family is gonna die. Why would you?
I see your point, Dan, in that like that is a thing you expect to have a character say.
Yes,
but I also see Clara's point that. Why would you say
I love that it's not given air. I love it. You brought this up. I just love that they don't consider it because why would you? Are you serious? If Dan, we're in a book, right?
Would you trade Dan for a pigeon?
We're heroes now, right?
Yeah.
We just met this pigeon 6 hours ago. Okay. And he's like, yeah, sure. I guess I'll train you. I mean, you may not be able to trust me. You may, who knows, right? And then that pigeon gets taken away from us. And the villain says, here's the thought. You help me end the world. And like, potentially your families die, right?
Yeah.
But you'll get your pigeon back. You're telling
Until
me
he dies too.
Yeah, you're telling me you would come and you would say, Clara, I think we should think about giving the key so that we can get our pigeon back.
Well, okay. I understand what you're saying, to be clear. I understand that. Especially because we haven't even really brought up the fact that at this point in time, they like just found out that he was one of their enemies and all that stuff. So, but I still think
No, why should they even discuss? Hey, Dan, do you think we should? Then if you told me that, right, Clara, I think, let's just talk about it. I would say, are you kidding? Like, are you capable of going on the rest of this mission with me? Like, if you're so soft, you want to trade your mom for a pigeon, I don't know what to do.
I'm telling your mom.
Okay, even if, like, to be clear, at no point did I ever expect them to actually go and trade the stuff for the pigeon. I just think...
Sorry, Boo, I know you're not like just a random pigeon.
I just think that they should have mentioned Boo in some fact that they're damning by making this choice. They're damning Boo.
They're hoping they can get it all. They're hoping they can have their cake and eat it too, like a real hero.
The fact that they don't say anything
Trade
about
that
Boo
key for the pigeon.
The fact that they don't say anything about Boo just to me like makes it seem like they forgot about it.
No, I don't believe that they don't say anything about Boo.
When they get the third key, they just go, okay, turn in. Oh, the door's here. Let's just go in. That was what felt weird.
Yeah,
okay.
You're on a limited. It's a time crunch. It's your mom or the pigeon. Are you going to stop and have a debate? Like these numbers are counting down on like an unreliable basis. What if they lost a whole day because they were like, I don't know, should we?
Well, then they'd be safe because apparently it doesn't matter.
They just lost the pigeon like an hour and a half ago. I'm just saying you might want to have a conversation about the pigeon.
About what? What are you going to do? You're on the mission
or at
for
least
the thing that can help the
lament
pigeon.
that he's in trouble.
You don't have time. You didn't even have time to lament. Your parents are in trouble.
They lament their parents.
Well, that's realistic.
They also they have plenty of drama. They had time to lament the pigeon.
I see your point. It would have been nice if they had at least said something like, I wish Boo was here, or like, oh, we'll fix him. We'll get him from the sleeper when we defeat the sleeper. Like all of those things. Yeah, that would
We'll get Boo.
Yeah.
Turn the key.
Basically saying not having a discussion. That was the wrong way of putting it. I should have more like
a reasoned debate.
more like acknowledging the fact that what we're doing is not what the sleeper
turn the key and say sorry, boo, and then go.
Not exactly that, but something to that effect.
I mean, they could have had this discussion at any point also in
death.
Yeah. So
it just acknowledging that they're making a choice at all.
Okay.
I don't feel like they acknowledge that they made a choice. Therefore, I don't think that it doesn't feel like they thought about it.
Why would you think about it?
Because they formed a bond with him.
Yes.
There's enough of a bond there that they should at least be sad about it.
I love that they don't feel guilty. Like, you know what I mean?
You can be sad that your friend is captured.
But you have to think about, we're in this weird zone, right? Where you can't be like, oh, they've only known him for 5 hours or 3 days or whatever.
Yeah, because they've also only known each other.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a book. You form bonds over 6 seconds. But let's move on from this.
I loved this. That was entertaining.
Pigeon v. Mom.
Pigeon Gate 2023.
And Boo is going to become my favorite character. And then I'm going to be like, how could I be so mean to Boo?
The important thing is we're not even on the quest yet. So let's get there.
I know. I was going to say, can I go back to the recap?
Yes.
We skipped ahead a little bit.
Editor Dan here. I'm going to cut this podcast off here as a part 1 because we went on for like another hour. So there's definitely going to be a part 2. I am going to try to get it out next week as opposed to keeping you waiting for 2 weeks like we were doing with the normal schedule. So next week will be a part 2. And then the following week, we'll get into Song of Death, the second Aru Shah book. Thank you guys so much for listening to this one. And may the gods be ever in your favor. Bye-bye.